This is Seth David from the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about QuickBooks for Contractors, retention, and the cash basis issue. Stay tuned to find out what's going on. Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more. Call me right now at 866-945-8070 for information about private trainings. We record the live session with you so you can review it as often as you like afterwards. Guess who's back with another fun-filled, action-packed video brought to you by the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated. It's me, yours truly, Seth David. And it's been a while since I put anything out on the Nerd Enterprises channel, so I'm excited to be doing that. You might be wondering, where have I been? What have I been doing? Or maybe you've already seen it. I've been back in school at schoolofbookkeeping.com. So far in the first, well, let's just call it 6 months of this year, we've rolled out 5 courses, a standalone course, and we've rolled out some new Excel templates, all of it available to students of schoolofbookkeeping.com. So if you want the latest and greatest access to my newest content and perhaps some of my best content to date, then you've got to come here and sign up for schoolofbookkeeping.com. It's only $28 a month if you want one-on-one time with me included in the package. There are plans for that, and most of the time we've got the first month is $14. You can try it out for only $14. Cancel any time, no questions asked. You still get the subscription for the remainder of that month, and then you don't get charged again. So give us a try, schoolofbookkeeping.com, and now stay tuned for my screencast on QuickBooks for Contractors, retention, and the cash basis issue. QuickBooks for Contractors can get pretty complicated. And in most cases, contractors probably should be reporting and filing on an accrual basis, especially since they're often dealing with inventory for materials, construction in progress, that sort of thing. However, on occasion, I've run into contractors, construction companies, who file on a cash basis. And I noticed something interesting that presents a little bit of a challenge insofar as invoicing your customers for a contractor on a cash basis and the retention and a problem that causes. The first thing that's important to note is that if you go to your item list and you look at the retention item that comes in by default when you set up QuickBooks for a construction company, I've already made this change, but the retention item by default comes in linked to construction income. So it has the effect of reducing construction income, which is technically incorrect. So you're going to want to change this to the retainage receivable account, which is also going to be there by default in your chart of accounts. So I'm not sure why they by default link this item to an income account, but maybe it's because of what we're about to see. So the first thing is you want to set that up right, because when I deduct retainage from an invoice, it really shouldn't impact income. I bill $100,000 for part of the job, let's say, and the retainage is simply a reduction of what they owe, not a change to income, but a reduction to the receivable based on the fact that I'm going to collect that at the end of the job after the final punch list is completed. And that's something that the Contractors Board has established to protect the consumer, the ones who are hiring the contractors. Make sure that they get everything done so the contractor can't say, oh, poof, we're done, sorry, can't help you anymore. So the retainage is important, and it's frequently you'll need to handle it in QuickBooks. So let me just kind of walk you through the process. You'll notice what I've got is I've got a cash basis profit and loss, an accrual basis balance sheet, and an accrual basis profit and loss. The main thing is to note the difference on what happens on the two different profit and losses, accrual versus cash. So let's post an invoice. And the critical thing here is that this is something that comes up really when you're crossing over from one year to the next. So I'm going to post an invoice to some customer, very creative, I know. And let's go back to December of 2013. We'll just pick a date right in the middle. And let's just say we're going to invoice for concrete $100,000. Then over here I need to do the retainage. So let's do a quantity of $100,000 and retention minus 0.1. It's usually 10%. So that way I can kind of track it this way. It's based on $100,000. I put that on the quantity. Negative 0.1 produces negative $10,000. So note my receivable is $90,000, and based on what I've shown you, this is going to link to a retainage receivable account. So if I hit save and close, I'll say yes. Let's close that. Don't need to worry about the spell check. Notice what happens right away. On the cash basis P&L, and I've got this set for all dates and to total by year. You'll see when we have information from 2 years how that shows up. But as of right now, it's showing construction income of $10,000. Why? I haven't earned any construction income of $10,000. All I've got is an invoice for $100,000, which hasn't been paid on a cash basis. That should be zero. There should be no income. Now, I can explain why QuickBooks is doing this, but the point is for you to be aware that this is going to happen. Now let's kind of see this thing through. So the next thing that's going to happen is, now let's say in January the following year we get paid on that invoice. So we're going to get paid by some customer $90,000. That's all that's due. Right? Notice before I hit save, the retainage receivable is there on the balance sheet as a receivable. Also notice if I switch this to cash basis, let's see what happens. Boom, the retainage receivable is still there. On a cash basis, technically it shouldn't be, but, and this is well known, that QuickBooks, the balance sheet converting from accrual to cash, doesn't deal well when there's an item from an invoice that's linked to another balance sheet account, which is exactly what we've got here. So it doesn't know how to reverse it. So let's go back to accrual basis for the balance sheet. You'll notice the accounts receivable went away. So here we're going to post the payment. We're going to post the payment in January of the following year. Somewhere in the middle, January 8th sounds good. Save and close, yes. Now let's refresh my reports. So notice what it does now. So now on a cash basis, it's giving me $90,000 in income in the current year, $10,000 in the prior year. Again, not really accurate. What it should be showing me is $100,000 of income in 2014. I'm going to come back and explain why it's doing this, but not yet. Maybe you can figure it out before I do. Now let's invoice. Let's say in January the job's complete by January 31st. We've completed the punch list, so we're going to invoice for the retention. So I'm going to post a new invoice to some customer. Let's just date this January 31st. Over here, retention. This time it's positive. 10,000. Save and close. Close. No change here. Here the retainage closes out. Remember, we're showing this on an accrual basis, so this is all right. Notice nothing has changed at all. On an accrual basis, the entire $100,000 of income was recognized in 2013 when the original invoice was posted. So that's correct. The accrual basis side of this is handled perfectly right. The issue is on a cash basis. We've got $10,000 that's really showing up in the wrong period, which means that when you, and this only is an issue when you're crossing over from one year to the next, so you're going to have to make a manual adjustment of some sort for tax purposes to fix this issue. Of course, if I take this original invoice now, let's double click it, drill right into the invoice. Let's say I push its date forward into 2014. We'll just put it on January 1st. Now, of course, everything should be correct. All in, well, yeah. Boom. So now it's got the entire $100,000 in the current year. So that's what I mean when I say it's only an issue when we're crossing over from one year to the next on the timing of the invoice versus when it gets paid. And again, I'll go back to December 18th. Bringing that back home, and there we are. So again, very important to realize that this is going on. I stumbled on this by accident while I was in a one-on-one private training session with a client going over this, and the client was telling me the income's showing up in the wrong period, and I'm saying it can't be. And then we started drilling in and digging around, and lo and behold, after testing a few things back and forth, I find out that this in fact is an issue. Now here's why it's doing it. The reason why it's doing it is that QuickBooks is looking at it from this standpoint. It has an invoice with $100,000 of income whose balance is then reduced by $10,000. So it's, even though the line item is linking to another balance sheet account in the form of retainage receivable, QuickBooks is looking at it in a more strict sense that an invoice whose balance originally would have been $100,000 has now been reduced by $10,000. Therefore, I'm going to consider this paid to the tune of $10,000 on a cash basis. So again, it has to do with items on an invoice that are linked to another balance sheet account as opposed to an income account. So that when that happens, when you're linking an item to a balance sheet account on the side where it normally would go to an income account, QuickBooks has a real difficult time dealing with going to accrual, from accrual to cash on this basis. So again, something to be aware of. The only thing to do to fix it is really to do a manual entry, or if you can, push the invoice date into the following year. And that's what ultimately we decided to do with the client that I was working with, is we agreed to just push the date forward. It was only a month's time in terms of the difference. In this way, we felt that since the invoice was paid in the following year, that would be the appropriate time in which to show the income on a cash basis, which is technically correct. As always, if you have any questions, reach out to me, email me, and I look forward to getting your questions and comments and feedback. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.